Hola, this is Lisa Ann McCall, physical therapist, posture princess, lover of movement. That's my little tagline, I guess. Today, we're going to talk about why do we always feel like our hips are tight, and what does that mean? I've met a lot of people, including myself, over the years that have felt tightness in the front of the hip. And sometimes we don't even know where that tightness is. Well, is it here in the front, or is it in here in the groin, or is it even any of that? I just know that I don't feel really good in here. Sometimes you don't really even know that your hips are tight until you try to stretch them. You may just know that they're not very comfortable, or you may actually have some pain in other areas that is a reflection of hip tightness. Well, let me explain something to you about one area of the body that tends to be very tight on people over the years that I've treated them, and the more that they move different as I teach, it just goes away. And if you're not familiar with the hip flexors, it's called the hip flexors, meaning there's more than one. There's the rectus femoris, and then there's other ones that cross. No, that one doesn't cross. Actually, they're ones that across the hip joint. So we have our quads, and they cross over, and right here, they cross the hip joint. They're very powerful muscles. So you can pick your leg up and down and feel them. Just do that. You pick one leg up, you can feel those guys right there and right there. They're very good for climbing stairs, okay? Now, what happens though is they tend to, or this area of the hip flexor tends to get very tight. And actually, it's not the only one. The guys in here called the adductors, the one that brings your leg in, that in there, kind of your groin to your knee. That's your adductor. Here's your hip flexors. Real important area of the body for movement. And when people are very oriented towards following muscles versus structure, they tend to be tight. And I can't get off on all the reasons why, but I will show you something that will cause them to relax. Now, I am more of a firm believer that muscles are tight because they're chronically asked to be doing something and it's not what they're designed to do. For instance, if I'm tight right here in my shoulder and I can't lift my arm, well, it's because my shoulder is sitting in an abnormal place. Now, I can sit and talk to you all day about how to stretch my pec, how to stretch my anterior shoulder muscles, the deltoid, all these, a little bit of the bicep, blah, blah, blah. But if I don't focus on muscles and I leave that idea away, and I start to focus on how is my spine and my shoulder blade and my ribs, how are they all moving in a harmonious way, then automatically this area just doesn't get real tight. It will start to loosen, and then tightness is just kind of gone. So if I chronically have to stretch an area, it means I'm probably not using those muscle groups in a way that causes me to be able to have more mobility. Let me explain one. I think that can be confusing, but let me use an example. In people in other countries, when they bend over a lot and work on the ground, or they'll use the ground, like they bend over and they may be working in the field. And they will be doing this most of their life, or all of their life. And they can bend amazing. It's just amazing. And they can be like this. And this is their world, okay? Here's their world of work. You know, this is their computer. This is their desk work. They're in the field doing something. And maybe they later on are squatting down and cooking their meal. But my point is they're bending all the time. Now, they don't have really tight hamstrings. Why would they? Because their life, the world that they work in, is down here, So all of this back here is what I call strong and long, lengthened and strengthened. The back of their body is doing the work and it is not too tight. Now, I have pretty good mobility, but I don't work on the ground, so I don't have anything like they do, but I have good enough to where I'm really comfortable, and I don't feel tightness in my hamstrings unless I do something that is out of my ordinary. So I guess that was my example of you don't need to stretch something separate usually from your reality. All stretches should really be very similar or easily woven back into reality. In other words, this is my hamstring stretch. I call it butt up the wall. This is how I strengthen my back and my buttocks. So they all come together. So let's get to the subject. Tight hip flexors. This is tight. This is tight. Well, what is causing some of that problem is sitting in a way that your butt is either tucked or your tailbone is dropped or you don't have a natural arch in your back and your leg bones are a little too forward compared to under your body. This is under my body. So I got this little plumb line, and I hope it works because it's really hard for me to see that. But what I'm doing is putting it at my hip. I put it at the ball of my hip, okay? This is my hip joint right here. This is how you measure a cane or a crutch, right here at the acetabulum. Anyway, so I go right here, and that lines up with my ankle. And I've got bone lining up with bone, and you can't tell in this black shirt, but it goes all the way up. And I'm lined up with a lot of bone on top of bone. Now this may look to you pretty normal, but for most people, their hips are here. They have tucked, dropped their tailbone. Either way, I use tucked and dropped the same. Many people get upset about that. They think there's a big difference. That's fine. I'll just say drop so I don't cause controversy. You drop your tailbone, and what you do is probably the thing that people just don't notice is this leg bone goes forward. So what? So what if it goes forward? Well, there's a lot of things. One thing is you're not lining your bones up as they're naturally designed to do. If you look at a baby in a diaper, they're going to be standing like this. They're lined up beautifully. If you look at a lady that's carrying a pot on her head, she's going to be lined up like this because she's not going to have a pot of rocks sitting while she's slumping. Or tailbone drop. She's going to line up as much bone as she can, and that's the stability of the body. So when my tailbone drops, I engage right here. My muscles have to work more. Right here, they have to. I'm going to exaggerate it so that you can see. If I went too far, everybody would agree that's pretty much too far, but a lot of people live like this. If I stood like this, well, in some ways I'm hanging out on some ligaments that I have here, but I'm also causing my muscles to engage to help hold me up. The less muscles you use to hold you up, the better. And you're not going to know. You can't say, oh yeah, I can tell I'm using the multifidi in right on my spine, but next to my spine. These are not thinky things. These are subtle changes as you move. The body subtly contracts and then relaxes and contracts and relaxes, and different things kick in, and it's just amazing. It's an orchestration of so many systems in your body working together. It's not your muscular skeletal system over here doing it by itself. It's working with your other systems, okay? Your balance system, okay? Your inner ear. It's working with the neurological system is the overall, your central nervous system is wired with all these other systems. Your intestinal system, your heart, your breathing, your lymphatic. There's all sorts of things that are all working together. And movement, when you move or don't move, the more efficient you move, the more efficient the whole system is. It's just all connected. And for years, I didn't really even realize this until constantly I saw how people were more relaxed. They had better muscle tone. They had a more relaxed jaw and face. I'm just pulling stuff out, you know. They had less tightness in their hip flexors. They felt more relaxed. It can also affect your bowel movements because you're not all tense here. There's so many ways in which being stacked in your bones creates more efficiency in all systems. But for sure, one of the reasons people have to go in there and work on their hip flexors, you'll see people do this. And they'll work here, or they'll get massage therapists to work on them, or they'll work on themselves. Has a lot to do with an idea that the tailbone should be dropped. And I've helped people undo this principle over and over again. And when they get into the principle of their femurs back, more like I just showed you, like that, when their femurs are back, whoops, it's coming up. It's easier if it rests. Then the hip flexors start to relax. Now, in the beginning of standing is a very subtle, a little bit more complex movement because you're putting all your weight on these two little feet and on your crotch. You know, if I had something on my head and I'm carrying it standing here, that weight will just be distributed through my body to my crotch and my feet. It's very similar to a woman who's pregnant. Where is this weight? This weight is going through her pelvis and her feet. And that's really similar to how we're thinking when something's on your head. Now, if you could just get off of the internet and start to feel this stuff and not try to read what's right and wrong, you'll start to feel like, wow, this is really different than what I was told and what I thought. So let me show you a picture from an anatomy book from the 1950s. It's called Camp Anatomy Book. Now, what I want you to notice is there's not excessive amount of curvature of the spine, but there is a little bottom there. And what I think is fascinating, we used to do, we don't do anymore, is we show this open body. Because what's real in vogue is to pull your stomach in, press your spine back, and really be tense in here. Whereas this is a much more open as in like that kind of body. Open, and then there's this little curve in the low back. It's just anatomy, people. You know, it's just your spine. You know, if you had all these little pieces of spine, you started stacking them up, and you put the greatest amount of surface area on top of another great amount of surface area, meaning that a logo, you want to put them up right, you want to stack them best you can, this is what you're going to end up with. It's not what you have been told and heard and all that. And I think I've shown this one a couple of times. I'm going to show it again. Here's a woman carrying her life, and then a young girl with that same openness in the front. Now, this isn't excessive. It's hard to see that slight arch in the back. That's a good thing, because that lets you know we're not doing this. We're not sticking our bottom out like this and going overarching like that. We're not looking at that. But to get your thigh bones to rest back, it is a lot of work for the neck, back, and abs to bring all of this back. So I think I'm going to take you through that exercise. Now, if you're willing to go into detail with me, let's do it, okay? I'm going to bring this shirt up. And here we go. This is on my YouTube channel. It's a lot of little pieces, but you just have to be willing to go with me on this. So, you ready? Door. Okay, so I'm going to put my fingers on my spine. I'm going to put my heels comfortable width apart and my toes slightly turned out. Then I'm going to turn my upper thighs out. That may sound complicated, but it's just like if you're going to set up for golf, you got to spend some time working on every area. Toes are planted, thighs turned out, and I'm sticking my bottom out, and I go, wow, I have a little arch back here. So I have an arch. And if you don't have an arch, stick your butt up in the air more. You're not going to overarch if you don't have an arch. So you got your butt. Now, I'm going to straighten my thighs. And I'm like, okay, it's good. Now, what do I do? Most people struggle right here. Because I got to bring my body up. I can't just live like this. So to bring my body up, most people would say, well, if I come up, my thighs are going to go forward. And they do. Until you work very, very deep in your body. So my thighs are back, and I have to tell myself, chest, you got to keep your chest down, and you've got to stretch like crazy the neck up. So where the hinge is right in here. This is where people don't have a lot of feel. And what I mean by hinge is people tend to come up, and this is what happens, a big arch. Well, it's going to do that at first because you're short and tight in the back. So let's play with this. I straighten my legs, and now I'm going to keep my chest down. I'm going to stretch my neck, and I sometimes use my hands. And the best I can, I come up, and your abs will be working really hard, really hard. Not down here. I mean, they're all working, but you'll feel it more up high. And you come up, and what happens here is you feel like your butt is just sticking out to the world. And you got to go do this in the mirror. You got to go in your bathroom. You got to go, this lady's crazy online. I'm going to do what she said. I'm going to take my butt back in an arch. I'm going to relax my stomach. I'm going to bring my chest down. I'm going to bring my neck up. I'm going to come up. I feel tension here. You're going to feel tension because it's tight. But it'll relax. It'll relax. The more you relax here, you'll relax here. So I'm going to relax, relax, and then before I know it, I'm standing up, and I think my butt is sticking out, but it's not. And you look in the mirror and you go, that's not so bad. A lot of work deep in the torso. A lot of work. Think of chest down, think of neck up, begin to keep, you're almost creating this very deep traction to bringing your body out of an old posture of tightness. And it's subtle in a way. In some ways it just seems extremely difficult at first because it's so foreign. But then the more you do it, it's like comes on, like your body just says, okay, I'll do that. I'll come up. And you feel work. You feel maybe tightness. You may feel things, but remember, when you feel tightness, you just relax. It's coming. Right here is where most people feel relaxed. So if you've got to sway back, then you're going to have to work more here. So it's right here at these ribs. Where the ribs and the lumbar spine meet, that is where the magic happens and where your change needs to. And it's subtle. So don't worry about understanding it. Just go play with it and tell me what you think. Ooh, I went on for a while, didn't I? So there's your little story. Questions?
Tom in Tucson says, explain the difference between hip and groin tightness.
Okay. They're usually very close together. They're so much often very close. Hip, this is hip tightness. If right here, these muscles here, that would be hip muscles. Groin tightness is in here. When I want to bring my leg out, it's tight in here. If I want to bring my leg out, I'll feel tightness in here. If I want to put my legs apart, it'll be tightness in here. So this is your groin, and this is your hip flexors. And it's rare that they don't both get tight together. So you don't really have to separate them logically, you don't have to separate them when you're doing my movements. You'll probably feel stretch in both. Especially if you're doing the one I taught where you sit on the floor and stretch your legs out. Go back to that one. How I teach you to prop your butt up and spread your legs. You get both there. There you go.
Next one is Stephanie, and William says, my groin or inner hips are always tight. before I exercise, what or should I stretch?
Okay, so why don't I show you a stretch that will change your posture and change your hip alignment so that you can have to stretch less. Like over time, you may go, wow, this feels fine. Okay, so I'm going to use this. Remember, John, we use this one over here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm going to take this ottoman, and or I can take this table, John, because it's closer, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to straddle something. Now I'm using this table because that ottoman's kind of far away. And so let's say you straddle it, okay? Oh, I'm going to turn sideways. Now here's what's important. I don't want you to have your butt tucked. I want you to put a pillow here, and I want you to sit on your crotch so that you have a little arch in your back. And if this is, and stretch. Now this would probably stretch you. But I'm going to show you what would stretch me. Don't think you have to do this, but just so you can see it. So I'm going to put my legs around this table. And then I sit on my crotch, and my legs are out, and I'm getting this big stretch. Well, I don't really get that big of a stretch, but you could. So I've got an arch in my back because I have a pillow under my butt. I'm sitting on my crotch, and my legs are out, and here is sitting. And then you get to stretch your groin, and then your body knows how to sit on the crotch. So more often in life, when you go to sit, if you're sitting on your crotch more than on your tailbone, then what happens is your groin gets strong and long. Strong and long right here. So this is a great stretch before you work out. Stabilizes the back, makes the back stable, strong, relaxes the belly. Here you are. This is real life. Then you can bring your legs in, get up and go. Now that's really wide, but you find something that works for you. Okay, good.
Otto in Vancouver says, is it typical to have hip tightness on one side more than the other?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I find that is just the way we are anatomically. Sometimes it has to do with the way we sit. Some people will cross one leg over the other. Another thing that causes hip tightness is people sit and they cross their legs and they slump over like this. Or they sit up or whatever. This is a really very big problem with hip tightness. Just crossing your legs like that. How can you solve that problem? Cross your legs like that. And you probably will put one leg up and go, wow, that's not hard. And then you go like this and you go, oh my gosh, I can't keep my back straight. And you try to keep your back straight and you bring your leg up and you go, wow. So do the wow one. Do the wow side. Stretch the tight leg. Try to hip more. It'll help balance your spine and your body out. Everybody usually has a tighter side. I don't know if that's our culture, or I would love to visit someday a culture where they live off the land and I could just see if they carry that same thing. You know, it just depends. But we do in a Western society.
Barry in Scottsdale asks, does the thigh forward position, is it due more to my spine slumping as much as dropping my butt?
I would say they're both because they're so tightly connected. Watch this. Now, since I don't know you, I don't know if you have a really tight upper back. So let's say you've sat at a computer a long time and your upper back's really tight like this. Well, your tailbone's going to be down. There's no other way it can be. But let's just say you've kind of got a thigh forward and you just have a little slump with your upper body. So I don't know if your upper back is more of the issue. I see this a lot with some people sitting at computers for years. And I can see that it's in here more for them, and it takes a while to get their hips back because that part of their upper spine is so stiff. So they work together. So you work your hips, you will be working your upper spine. There's no separation in that world.
Peter in St. Louis says, since I sit so much, what can I do to stretch my hip muscles because I feel so tight in my hips when I get up.
Okay, I'm going to show you. Can I get your saddle chair? I'm going to just show you a chair that I think sometimes, not always, but sometimes it's easier for people just to have a chair that will help them sit better with the posture we have in our Western society. Now, I wouldn't sit here all day in this. It could be very taxing, but this is called a saddle chair, and you'll see hairdressers have them a lot of times. And so what you're going to do is you'll straddle this saddle chair, and you're sitting forward on it. You don't slump on it. You sit on your crotch, and then you're there, and you can work. Now, your back is straighter. You're going to wear out. The upper back for most people gets really tired because it's naturally slumped, and then when you sit like this, it starts to have to work. So it can get tired up here. So you get out of it and get in another chair and lean back in another chair, and I show you how to lean back in a lot of my videos, how to sit back. And so you can go from this to leaning back in a chair at a desk. I think leaning back in a chair is good. It causes your back to relax and straighten. And so look at those videos and then jump on one of these saddles, because baby, oh baby, your legs will be open more. They really will. You can just eliminate it by getting, and I'm telling you, there's a million of these online. There's a lot of them for like hairdressers and nail people that do nails sit on those things. Yeah.
Darlene in San Diego says, when I pull my thighs back, I automatically lock my knees, which I don't think is good. What do I do?
Okay, so this is a little dance I had to deal with too. So you take your thighs back and your knees locked out. I get that. Okay? So what you have to do is you have to just slightly unlock them. And one thing that helps is pull your toes up. It sounds weird, but if I pull my toes up, for some reason, that doesn't allow, that pulling toes up can help your knees from locking. Now, if you're super, super hypermobile, then I don't know if that'll help. But if you pull your toes up, that's another way to get your thighs back. You could just stand right now. You could just stand. Everybody just stand. Don't do anything. And just pull your toes up, and you'll start to feel your thighs go back. It's a great exercise for your feet too, because feet just don't get enough, they don't get enough movement, and they don't get to work enough. So pull your toes up, and that may help. But if you unlock, you just barely unlock. And the more that your thigh bones begin to line upright, stretch my neck, chest down, they stop locking. They just start finding center. So if the only thing you do is pull your toes up, that's good. Pull your toes up and see if they unlock.
Last but not least, Wally in Seattle says, I go to yoga. Everybody can get cross-legged sitting. That's a joke for me. What can I do?
I would start in a saddle chair. If you're that tight in your hips, start with something that's user-friendly, that's kind to your body, something that you can use, maybe like this, and you sit like this, and you start to do that. And the other what I would do is, once you've done that some, I would sit and I would work on crossing one leg and being tall. Right now, for most people, if they do this, they're working their upper back because their hip is so tight that they try to pick their leg up, and they're like this. Let me turn sideways. They're like this. So you work on being tall, and that stretches your hip. So those are the two things you can work on. A chair that will start to change your posture, and everybody else may have a lot of mobility, but you have more stability.
Okay, there's no chair or table in a yoga studio.
No, but this is what he does at home.
He's asking, in yoga.
Oh, in yoga, get those bolsters. Don't they have bolsters in yoga? Get a bolster and sit on it. So in yoga class, what I would do is get a couple of bolsters. I don't have bolsters, but play like that's a bolster. Does that make sense, John? Mm-hmm. So I would get on a bolster and try to sit. And I wouldn't worry about your legs crossing if you can't get them crossed. Try to be tall. But they usually carry bolsters or blankets, yoga blankets. Just pile them up. And then if you get this good, that's good. And you can try to cross, but I'd be more concerned about being tall and putting blankets underneath you. And then when you go home, work on the things I told you at home so you can have more fun in yoga. Is that good? Mm-hmm. All right. Please email me, lisaann@mccallmethod.com, or go to mccallmethod.com. Let me know your thoughts. What do you want to work on? What do you want to hear? Do you have questions? Do you have answers? I just want to hear from you. So like, share, and what? Subscribe. See you later, alligator.